Howdy. So sometimes we narrow our own horizons. We get caught in little mental loops that limit the possibilities and get in the way of what we're willing to try and what we're willing to do. I haven't posted as many videos over the last couple of years, but if you've been watching them, you've noticed that I've kind of rekindled my interest in an old hobby. That's amateur radio, but with a twist called Summits on the Air. And what that has to do with expanding horizons is for the last few years, I've actually kind of felt like I was in a little bit of a thought loop, just driving to the same trailheads, climbing to the top and coasting down. And I filled that to a certain extent by just trying to drive to different trail systems farther and farther afield. But you start to realize when you do that a lot that, hey, the more they're different, the more they're the same. So it was kind of a lucky thing that I discovered that I can basically combine these two hobbies. But it also made me have to expand. So now I'm doing a little bit of gravel biking. And actually this trip will combine gravel biking with single track as well as Summits on the Air. So I'm gonna have to do gravel biking, single track, and bushwhacking to complete my objective. Today's objective, ride to and activate Crazy Hills, Potonics Pushier, and Twin Butte. That's 3 summits, 4 points each, for a total of 12 points in the SOTA database, as well as 3,000 feet of climbing. I'll give you the numbers at the end of the ride. Road report, worse. Worse than last year. It's grown in a bit. One thing I learned from my previous experience bikewhacking is bring long pants. Do not leave food unattended. Chipmunks are cute, but if they chew a hole through your backpack, you'll be sad.
While there are summits that I can ride my bike to the top of, they are the exception, not the norm. Here in the southern Washington Cascades especially, most summits don't have roads to the top, and they're covered with trees and thick underbrush, which therefore requires a lot of bushwhacking to access. This summit was no exception, so I proceeded to leave my bike behind and climb the remaining 350 feet to the summit with just under a mile of bushwhacking. When I arrived at what's called the activation zone, which is just the name for the area from which two-way exchanges with other radio operators count toward qualifying the summit and therefore add points to my running total, I set up my 67-foot long wire antenna and I started calling for contacts. There is a network of stations out there listening that are called the Reverse Beacon Network, and they picked up my Morse code signal, decoded it, and posted my call sign to a web interface that alerted other ham radio operators that I was on summit and looking for contacts. I needed 4 two-way contacts to qualify the summit, and I made 5. I translated the first one for you.
So there you have it. This is Crazy Hills. That's the activation zone, just this landing area. And it's, I mean, it's not super easy to get to. Like, there's a little bit of bushwhacking, but it's not terrible. Only a few hundred feet of elevation gain over that bushwhack, and I was able to get up most of the road on my bicycle. So now I just have to get back to my bike. It is a little bit confusing getting up here. You think you're in the activation zone and you're not, and it's just kind of a, I don't know, crazy hills. It's sort of kind of, the name fits the area. There's no view up here. This is the activation zone. It's not that remarkable. I played a little game of will it antenna, and of course the answer to the question of will it antenna is almost always, yeah, probably. Well, Crazy Hills is crazy. It lives up to its crazy name. Again, I was dead certain that my bike was stashed the other direction. And if I hadn't recorded a track on my phone, I would have gone down the completely wrong side of the mountain looking for my bike. I was so sure, I was so like turned around that I've had to have my phone out and follow the track. And now I see trees I recognize, but like I was in completely unrecognized terrain there. So that's something to keep in mind. Oof, that is spooky. That is one summit down. It took probably a little over an hour and a half to do that summit. So 2 more summits to go. That's not trivial, and it is currently 4:56 p.m. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. We'll see what happens. So next summit is Potonics Pushier, and I'm gonna be on roads for a little bit, and then I'll get onto the Tillicum Trail, and then I'll have to bushwhack that one as well. It looks from the map like it should be a bit more straightforward. Wow. So this is the nondescript intersection with the Tillicum Trail. Doesn't look like much. Orogenesis, okay. Looks like, okay, so it goes over here. That's good info. An easy place to get lost. Oh, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. This is where I'm getting water. It's not enough. Tried enough. You know, virtuous enough. I suppose it's not. All right, it's almost 7 o'clock. This only says I have 237 feet of elevation remaining. So the trail comes within 237 vertical feet and 1,000 linear feet of the summit. This looks like a typical bushwhack. All right, we're almost to the summit. This is the activation zone for Potonics Pushier. And as you can see, it's a typical Pacific Northwest 4-pointer. Really hard to get to, really difficult activation zone to set up an antenna in, and it just teases you. At best, it teases you with views. Resume.
I didn't record anything from this summit activation. I was getting too tired, and I could see I was at risk of losing daylight, and I had only brought one bike light on this trip because my bar light is pointless with this stupid bag attachment on my front handlebars, so all I had was a headlamp. Anyhow, finally, the one section of single track downhill on this ride began. In return for the 1,000 feet of climbing, I did over 2 miles. On the backside of this trail, I got 500 feet of single track descent for this whole ride. It's a perfectly acceptable descent. The nicest thing I can say about it is that the Orogenesis folks did a really, really good job clearing the corridor. Tillicum is single track that you can ride your bike on. I spooked a herd of elk.
Elk! Cool. Wow. Well, I'm glad they're running. Okay, and we're back. And that took longer than anticipated. But we're here. And on the plus side, it was downhill for the last couple of miles. So thankful for that. Okay, so the ride total, the recap, was 2,400 feet of climbing, 2,500 feet of descending. I don't know how that works, but we'll just go with it. Over 24.4 miles, so 24 and a half miles, but that was just on the bike. The actual amount of ascent and descent I did was, according to Gaia GPS, 2,700 feet of climbing, which there's a disagreement between those two because I know that I did at least like 500 feet of summit climbing. So, and then this on Gaia, it says 26 miles, and that makes sense because you had to add the miles of going up and down the two summits. I did not do Twin Butte because I ran out of time, and I'm really glad that I didn't. When I got to the intersection with the road up to Twin Butte, I skipped that climb, and when it recalculated, it told me I had 7.5 miles left to get to the car, and I didn't believe it. I thought I only had a couple miles, but it was true. It was 7.5 miles. So that's a lot. I'm glad I didn't do that. Anyway, pretty epic. Well, not super epic. It's not like an epic ride, right? But it was pretty neat. A little different experience than what I normally do. Give it a try sometime. Do something different. And get out there and go ride your bike.